Here's another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hello, everybody. Hope you're having a nice day. It's a windy day, isn't it?
It's very windy.
Yeah, I have Courtney Peets here. She is the Executive Director of Burleson ISD Health Services, so we're going to ask her a lot of questions. But before we get to the ad, I want to ask you one question first.
Okay.
Trump or Biden?
Oh.
No.
Neither.
You said no politics. I couldn't. You tell Eric I did that.
I will. I'll let him know.
He'll think that's funny. Her husband teaches over at Cleveland High School and teaches the classes I taught. Courtney and her husband Eric are both ex-students and fondly remembered ex-students. They're great kids, and now they have great kids, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
But to see Eric teaching government history, AP level, now he knows what I went through.
He does.
Yeah.
He does.
Well, I know he gets stressed probably about late April, early May when the tests are coming and all this other stuff, and he's worried about what they're going to ask, and you're there, to help him along, and then, sort of.
I'm there to listen. That's about all I can do.
How long have you been the executive director?
This is my third year as the executive director.
And you've been with the district how long?
I'm going on 11 or 12.
Right. You came from one of the elementaries.
I did. I was at Fraser when I first started.
And then they said we had to have you downtown, so to speak.
We did.
And now, you sit on top of this big network, and it's probably going to get bigger. I bet we're going to have a couple of new schools within the next 3 to 4 years. It's just getting that way.
You just continue to grow.
Yes, we do. And anyway, but we're going to talk about what she can do for y'all and your kids, really, and what she can't do for your kids. That's also important because a lot of people have misconceptions about what the Burleson School Clinic can do. Also, the kind of situations they encounter quite often. Not everything is just Johnny with the sniffles. I mean, I'm sure they had some pretty interesting stories. So when all the nurses get together for their conferences over probably about 5:00 at somebody's happy hour at Chili's, you probably have swap war stories, but here you are. But anyway, let's talk about the sponsors to make all this happen. Thank you to Daniel Baisden at 317 Southwest Wilshire with CrossFit Burleson. CrossFit is a pretty strenuous workout. It's not for those who are just kind of lightly going after it. You have a program, though. They'll provide you with a regimen, a training program. They have trainers, they have supervision. So it isn't like you just go in there and guess at what you want to do. They'll help you find a program that fits you and a regimen that'll fit your age and physique and whatever else. So it's a great place to go for that kind of workout. So thank you, Daniel, with CrossFit Burleson. And then we have also Shandy Stogsdill at the Stogsdill Group. Are you aware she's running for school board?
I am aware.
Yeah, I know. Because we have had her on a couple of times, and she's been pretty active on Facebook. And I have her opponent, Dallas Owen, on next Tuesday, so y'all tune in for that. And it's going to be very interesting. It's one of those kind of races that you kind of wish they both could win,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Shandy Stogsdill is also a real estate queen of this area. She comes on the show to talk about that too. And she knows the real estate. If she can help you sell a house, she can help you buy a house if you move into this area. Also, thank you to Our Place Restaurant. Everybody knows Our Place. Everybody knows Otto. Do you go there any often?
I love Our Place.
Yeah. Isn't it nice?
It's good.
It's a quiet place. Food's good.
It is good.
People treat you decent. It's a very comfortable atmosphere.
Yes.
I go there, it seems like once a week. I do whatever podcast-related business there or the networking group I'm in, the B&I group I'm in. I'll meet people there. So Our Place is a great place to go on the highway in Alsbury. So check it out if you haven't. I can't imagine anybody in Burleson hasn't checked it out already. Also, is Eric a cigar smoker?
No, not really.
Well, he needs to become one. Now, this is owned by a friend of yours, right? Chris Notabone.
It is.
This is Wild Cigar and Culture. For those who are not watching, they'll be listening. Wild Cigar and Culture is over at the Standard, and I was there about a couple of weeks ago. And it's a nice, quiet place. And you don't have to smoke a cigar. You have a nice bar there, and you watch the game, or you can do anything else you want to do. It's a good place to do business. They have a conference room, but also if you're like doing a one-to-one meeting or something like that, it's a good place. And you can hear yourself think. And that's a good thing, because sometimes you go to these bars and you're shouting across the table, and that's no fun. But anyway, Wild Cigar and Culture over at the Standard. Also at the Standard is Tiffany Nico, the Local Life magazine. She's getting this next issue ready. It's about middle of the month. Her busiest week is the third week, getting it all together, but it'll be in your boxes very soon for the February issue. So check out locallifetx.com to see if you haven't gotten the last issue, or you're out and about and you don't have it with you. You can check that out and see what's going on in the community and what sales are going on. So locallifetx.com for that. And Southern Gym. Now, Eric need to take you here.
I haven't been.
Anyway, Robin, my wife, works there now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, part-time. She retired from Centennial.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she in September, when she got that magic number, she said, I'm moving on.
Got it.
Yeah, and not, and the thing is, people your young age, you think, well, I might want to work for a long time. But when you get close to that 80, your perspective changes.
Yes.
Particularly with your skills as a health professional, you can probably go about anywhere.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can right now, especially.
Yeah. But anyway, Southern Gym is on the top of the Windmiller building. It'll be at the bottom of the Windmiller building in about 5 weeks, roughly. And it's got repairs, it's got designs and appraisals, but it also has very nice inventory. So you get Eric to take you up there and check it out and check the jewelry out, because it's very nice. And it's not all high end. I mean, they got that, but they also have stuff for us more budget minded people. So check it out. Hotworks, you ever done these infrared workouts?
I have not done Hotworks.
Well, Taylor is our local expert on that and electric cars. And so Hotworks is on 731. It's an infrared workout, and it's supposed to, be less strenuous on your joints. It cuts down on your inflammation. You have about 11 different programs you could do, like Pilates, yoga, biking, cross training kind of stuff with the cardio and that kind of stuff. And so Hotworks is a very popular outfit. You got to check it out. It maybe does BISD at one point and a while back, they used to encourage and even get discounts for their teachers and other staff to join gyms and things like that. They still do that?
We do have a lot of people that will offer discounts to the employees, and I think that they still can use the brick with an educational discount as well.
Yeah, so I remember they were really big on that about 15 years ago. They were trying to get us off the couch, I guess, and, save on the healthcare costs, whatnot. But anyway, it's a good place to do it. 731 beside Chicken Salad Chick, say it right, and all those other things that are over there. This is my insurance agent, Texas Farm Bureau, with Melissa Harmon, 682-804-0534. She'll check out your insurance and see if you get the best deal. If you're a current client at Texas Farm, make an appointment with her anyway, because that way she can tell you if your coverage is up to date, if you need better coverage, or if you're fine, whatnot. If she can help you, she will. If you got the best deal going, she'll tell you. So give her a call at 682-804-0534 and have your insurance checked out. Now, we have one ongoing drive of some sort, the Fridge Fund drive with Harvest House. They're trying to raise up to $20,000 to add to what they already have to put in refrigeration and other units, a freezer unit, whatnot, so people can buy fresh produce and meat and whatever else. And this goes on to the end of the week. So it's a good way to help out the community. She'll be on the show on the 27th, and we'll be able to talk about how successful she was. So there you are. All right. It always takes a lot of breath.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, right. They're all right. Well, the long-time viewers are like, yeah, I'll be back in 10 minutes. We'll be done. But anyway, so let's start from the beginning. You joined 11 years ago at Fraser. Where did you get your education?
I did a couple of years at Baylor, Sickle Bears. I graduated nursing school from Stephen F. Austin State University.
Yeah.
Wonderful nursing school.
Yes, it is.
After I left, even a better nursing school. They have an amazing facility. So.
Yeah. We have a real need for nurses. Is it hard to get nurses for the school system, considering how much need and probably better pay in some areas for nurses? Is that hard to compete for that?
It really is. We have a lot of people interested, but right now you can make a lot of money being in a hospital because there's a huge need there as well. So, it just kind of depends on where you are in life and really what you want to do.
Well, I would imagine a lot of the people that apply to be a school nurse are doing it because they want to have a special clientele, so to speak, the children, right? Particularly certain age groups.
Yes.
And maybe in some cases, if they have kids in the system, it's also pretty handy to be nearby.
Yes.
When my wife worked there, but when we both worked there, she was there from 2004 till just recently. It was helpful for both my kids. Now that doesn't mean I was excited about the fact that we could check in on them at any time, but it was helpful. But I would imagine that most of these people that work for the system are doing so because it's a school situation, not because they can't find something else to do.
Exactly. They have a
Yeah.
heart for what they're doing. And a
Mhm.
lot of times you're right. Its schedule works best with their family, and that's super
Mhm.
beneficial.
Yes, and there is that too. You're not working the overnight shift or
Hmm.
weekends and things like that. People think, about the teaching situation. One of the best things I liked about it, the money was fine. I wish the insurance was a little better, to be frank, but there you are. But I did like the fact that I did have Christmas
Hmm.
and Thanksgiving and things like
Hmm.
that, and you're not working those holidays. I'm sure, and if you're a nurse, you're always
You're
working them.
always working a holiday.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Hmm.
Uh, does each campus have its own clinic?
Yes, sir.
And
Every campus has a
uh,
clinic.
and does each clinic have a RN that runs it?
We have RNs throughout the district. All
Hmm.
of our larger schools, our major schools have an RN, and then we have access to RNs everywhere. But every school houses a nurse.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And they all also have assistants, right?
Yes. Yep. Our larger schools have assistants, and
Hmm.
then our high schools both have 2 nurses.
Really? So
Hmm.
they're both RNs or
An RN and an
LVNs?
LVN.
Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. Because I know this isn't like a para position. You have to have specialized training
Yes,
and
sir.
education to get it. And do you have to have a college degree to be an LVN?
You have to have the graduate program. So some of them do
Hmm.
have associates, but it's more of a certification.
Right, because I
Hmm.
teach at Hill, as you may remember,
Hmm.
and we have a really nice entry level
Hmm.
program, and I've had a couple of them said that they wanted to go and work in a
Hmm.
situation like these clinics.
And Hill does have a really good LVN program, and they also have a transition program for LVNs to RNs. So,
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I've had them in my class. They're obviously not going to be history or government majors, but they had
hmm.
to take me anyway. But I was always impressed by the fact that not every school can do this,
Mm-mm.
or school system rather. And there was a commitment to it.
There was absolutely.
Yeah. And did you, when you were younger, sitting in my class, getting bored to death about Andrew Jackson, did you think I want to be a school nurse? Oh, that's my diabetes thing. Doggone it. I'm on a diabetes deal, and I had a couple of pigs in a blanket before, and look what happens.
So it's telling you that you
Yeah.
shouldn't have.
Yes, but
I knew
doggone.
I wanted to be a nurse. I don't know that I knew what specialty. I knew I wanted to
Mhm,
be in pediatrics. I've always loved kids.
mhm.
As a matter of fact, when I graduated, I was the only one in my graduating class that did pediatrics. But I started my time at Cook Children's in the oncology unit.
Ooh, that
Um,
must have been tough.
it was extremely rewarding, but it was very tough emotionally.
Hmm.
So I did that, and then a school opportunity came along. I was substituting as a nurse in the school district.
Hmm.
And, at the time, nurses, when you got into the school district, you didn't leave.
Right,
It
right.
was a fantastic job, and you wanted to stay. So as soon as an opportunity came about, that's where I ended up, and I've never looked back.
I remember the first nurse that I worked with. It was Marlene Baker,
Uh huh.
and she was there. She stayed there until I believe about the early 2000s, and then Janet Witten came in,
Hmm.
and she stayed until her retirement. And you're right. I mean, that's those jobs must be pretty sought after, I would imagine.
They are.
Yeah.
And
Are you?
the nurses that have left in our district, they're typically going on to do more advanced practice. So I have
Hmm.
some that went back to doing nurse practicing.
Hmm.
I have one that went back to be a midwife. And so, those are the
Midwife. That's
reasons.
interesting.
Those are the reasons that we've lost them recently. And so they tend to be in for the long haul.
Right. So you're not losing them because of dissatisfaction. Just
Mm-mm.
they're like we talked about a few minutes ago. There's multiple opportunities for health professionals, and sometimes money can't be. You can't turn down the money forever.
Hmm.
Yeah. So are you involved personally in the hiring process?
I am. I do hire the nurses.
And so
Hmm.
yeah, I'm sure there's some process involved, but you just walk into old Brett's office and go, "Here, Jimerson, here's my new nurse." Is that how it works?
We work. I interview and we make sure that they're going to be a good fit on the campus. So the principal has some conversations as well. So we look at them from 2 different perspectives, which is nice. I need to know from the nursing perspective, but they need to know from the staffing perspective. So we partner on that.
When you say a right fit, what is the right fit?
It just depends on every campus. What I'm looking for is someone that's confident to work on their own. And then, a principal's looking for different things. I've never been a principal. So they're wanting somebody that's going to be a team player, going to be good with parents. And so we're looking and discussing. So we have a couple people involved in the process to make sure that we have the right fit at each campus.
Well, I'd imagine though, like we were talking about, it does take a certain mentality, certain hard approach when you're dealing with small children, particularly. But even when you're sick, even at high school, they tend to go back to when they're 5 and want their mommies.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but it just, fortunately for me, I never really had to do much with the school nurse. But I had a lot of students that, I saw them every day because I had to,
Yes.
and that's part of the job. I guess one of the questions I would ask you is that what can you not do for a student? Because a lot of people, it sounds like an odd question, but a lot of people think that they can go in there and get a Tylenol, which they cannot, right?
They cannot.
Right.
So we are registered nurses across the board. So we operate under physician orders. And so if your kid has a headache, if I don't have orders from a doctor to give your kid medication for a headache, I can't do it. I am going to call you, and I'm going to do my best to make them comfortable within my clinic, try some things, resting, some things that I know that I can do. But just randomly giving medication, I can't.
Well, let's say that, is it possible that I could write a kind of like a generic note and give it to you at the beginning of the year? If my kid wants a Tylenol, you can give it to him?
Sure. And we need specifics. So it would need so-and-so needs Tylenol for a headache as needed every 4 hours. And then a doctor signs it and a parent signs it.
Okay.
And we absolutely can do that.
Okay, so a doctor has to
A
sign
doctor
it.
has
It
to
isn't
sign
like,
it.
okay, I can just get my yellow pad out and say,
Nope.
give Johnny a pill when he wants one.
No.
And hand it to you and put it in his file.
Nope.
Okay, so there's some process.
Yes.
But we're talking about over-the-counter drugs as well, just Tylenol or, Dayquil or something like that. I'll make a confession. I did not know that till about 2 or 3 years into my teaching career. And I remember some kid comes up, I got a headache. Oh, here, I got a Tylenol. And I didn't realize it. And I told somebody, and the department head at the time, and her face went white because,
I bet.
he could have had a reaction. You'd be in jail right now. I'm like, oh, my Lord, I had no idea. And so, when I had medications like I still do, I have for blood pressure, et cetera, I just kept it with the nurse, because I just go in and take it there because I didn't want to have any kind of risk whatsoever of some kid either being silly or goofy or malicious even, and then taking the drugs and something happening.
Right.
I don't know what would happen with cholesterol medicine, but, I don't want to find out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So I guess to make this point, when a kid comes in and says, I got a sore throat, I have an earache, I have whatever, what can you do for them?
So in those situations, we can assess, and then we can call parent and give them recommendations.
But again, you can't, if the parent says, hey, give them a Tylenol, you can't do
I
it.
can't do that. I can do salt water. I can do a peppermint. I can do a warm pack on the ear. We can rest. We can do a dark room to where they can kind of calm down. We can find their glasses. A lot of times headaches are related to not having glasses. So there's a list of things that we go through. And then obviously, if we can't get it under control, we can call parents and make recommendations from there.
Yes. But, now when I was a kid, all those things are possible, but I guess over the course of time, they've had too many bad experiences to maintain that practice, and that's fine. We'd joke about it. I said, "Oh, you broke your arm? Go get a peppermint."
If only.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I think sometimes kids would say, "I got a sore throat." They were just getting the peppermint. That's all they want.
We have a few.
Yeah, just wanted a peppermint. So they'll, oh yeah,
You learn those kids pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. You probably do see a lot of the same kids over and over again, and maybe not even health related. You may be the only health provider that these kids see. Not everybody has the same stable home life that you and I did, and you may be a place of refuge.
A lot of times, yes, sir.
Yeah, and I walked in, with my daily pill taken. I'd see sometimes the same kids over and over, and I'd ask one Lana or Janet, which are the nurses, is that kid? Why is he always sick? I said, oh, he's not sick. He just needs a place to calm down. Do you get a lot of that kind of stuff?
We still do.
Yeah.
And when you have a kid in your office that's sick, you look at the picture as a whole. Why are they not feeling good? Did they not have breakfast? Is something stressful in the classroom? So there's a lot that goes into that besides just saying, oh, your throat hurts. There's a lot of questions and conversations that you can get out of a kid. You can watch them, observe them, and kind of see what's happening. Sometimes you just give them a hug, love on them, and their day has completely turned around and they're good to go.
And they told me that they sometimes just have kids, the same kid, just come by and say hello because they want somebody to acknowledge them, I guess. And
It's just their safety.
yeah, and you'd see a lot of the same ones over and over again, and they were doing it because they may not be getting it anywhere else. And I just find that interesting because we think of a school nurse, we think of her, maybe putting a Band-Aid on this or helping with that, but I bet there's a lot of emotional and psychological health care going on.
We do. We partner with our counselors. You have to really look at everything as a whole nowadays. You can't just look as a physical symptom. You just want to make sure you're taking care of the kid as a whole.
I'm going to try to get this. I didn't do this at the beginning of the show. But I'm trying to get this YouTube thing working. It is always an almighty trial, but Taylor sent it to me, so we'll see if we get this to work. But anyway, this will be shared with the various platforms, and so and also I send it to Michaela, and she'll share it with whoever she sends it to. You have your own. I bet you have your own health care page, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So she'll be send it to you. You can do what you want with that.
Okay.
And all these. Yes. Seems like there's a lot going on. Oops, I don't need that one. Sorry. Oh, no, doesn't matter. Okay, there we go. Now you're all hooked up. Anyway,
Okay, cool.
I was always running out of juice on my phone too. I'm having a tough day. Well, anyway, but I mean the psychological part is what really struck me is because again, when we think of school nurses, we think of minor first aid or something like that, but there's some major traumas sometimes they have to deal with.
Not anymore. It's not minor first aid
Well,
most of the time, but they are well equipped to deal with whatever they need to.
Yeah, and so how are they equipped to deal with something like let's say you have an 8-year-old kid that just loses it? It's that, and I'm sure that happens. How do y'all handle that?
We go through a lot of training. We make sure that we're up to date on anything that's happening in the world. They train over the summer. We discuss it a lot, but we partner with our counselors. So the nurses know that if they have a kid in those circumstances that are struggling, then we're going to call in some additional support just to make sure that we can all be part of that.
Look at Taylor. He gave me
I saw that. I was like, that is so kind.
Yeah. Well, you may not know this, but when you see this later, they're going to see us. They're not going to be seeing that on the screen. They'll have seen Taylor slide this in. I might need to get me something like that just permanently. This phone is old. I think it's one step above the old flip phone.
Yeah, so,
so
still has a push button. Yes.
Yeah.
But
what's a push button?
Yeah, I have to pull the antenna up and that kind of thing. But anyway, they had. I remember a couple times at the high school, they had some of the kids have emotional breakdowns. Particularly in the life skills area, which is not too far from the nurses station, which is a good idea. And so, some days you're going to be having to deal with as a nurse something completely out of the ordinary. And you have to go through training for that, I'm sure. Lots of it. I can imagine the amount of training you have to do.
We do. We try to stay on top of everything that we can, go through some yearly training, skills training, everything we can do.
That's I know training is often seen as it's a grind for teachers, but it's critical for y'all, And now we were talking before the show. Y'all partner up with certain health organizations.
We
right?
We do.
With whom are we partnered with?
So we have a really good relationship with Hughley. Hughley works with our CTE kids, and they were really helpful in part of our COVID plans and everything like that. So Hughley's always just a great place. This year for the nurses, we partnered with THR Simulation Lab. So we were actually able to go in and do some hands-on training with some state-of-the-art dummies. So we could hone in on our skills for like tube feeding, things like that we would see, maybe not all the time, but often enough that we need those skills. We partner with UNT Health Science Center. And Cook Children's on several things as well. So people are wonderful to the school system. So I can reach out to just about anybody, and they're gonna do their best to try to help us.
Do you use some of those students over at the Centennial program?
Yes. The CTE kids come in our clinics to do some of their clinicals, and we hopefully teach them a lot while they're there. We love having students. We also have a lot of nursing students from Hill College. Hopefully we'll start next year. Tarleton kids come in and observe in the clinics. And so, we're doing our best to try to grow our own and support that. But we love having the CTE kids in.
Well, it's a great program. It's been around. Were you part of that program?
I wasn't.
Okay. Well, it's been
It was
around
there.
20 years.
It was
It's not.
there.
This isn't. At least Starrett had that for a long time, and then now she's retired. I don't know who does it at Centennial now. Most of the staff is new to me.
Yes.
When they first started, I knew most of them. Now, not so many. But anyway, I just think that's great. I mean, what an opportunity for those kids, though. I mean, they don't have to go into Fort Worth or this kind of training or some the county hospital. They can just
They come to us.
come to us for their clinicals, and they learn how to do those things like blood pressure and stuff. Y'all take blood pressures?
We do sometimes.
Yeah,
It just depends on the circumstance.
So you can do that. Okay.
Check a lot of temperatures.
But you were telling me earlier how many kids y'all saw.
So I was pulling numbers this morning. Last school year, we had over 80,000 office visits. And it's mid-February, and we're already up to 50,000 this year.
Was it mostly COVID related? A lot of
Probably
it?
here and there, but I would hesitate to say mostly because look at our numbers for this year.
Yeah.
So we've been pretty steady, and those numbers have steadily increased since I've been here. But the nurses do a phenomenal job. 80,000 kids, can you imagine?
Well, that's a bunch, and and I'm just thinking, do you have it in your records? Do you have it divided up into what they were there for?
I can, yes,
Yeah,
sir. I can
okay.
pull if we have kids for COVID, if we have kids for flu, kids for just daily treatment. So I can basically pull anything they're in there
Is our friend Catherine?
for. Oh, yes.
Yeah, Courtney was our school nurse for both of my kids. She helped us figure out a laundry detergent allergy. Very grateful and so good to see you on here, Ms. Courtney.
Awesome.
Catherine's a regular contributor to this program. So
I know her kids well.
Well, and I think the oldest one is also on the Mayor's Youth Council, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Growing.
Yeah, they are getting there. It just was interesting, though, all that data you have to go through. I mean, if you see a trend or something, can you kind of forestall it? I mean, you see, okay, we're getting all these kids coming in feeling like, with flu-like symptoms and all this, and so you can plan for that more, right?
Yes, and I'll do flu and COVID reports weekly, so I kind of know what our numbers look like. If I look at a campus, so the campus reports their numbers every month. So if I look at a campus and they're seeing 1,000 kids a month, we're going to look at why are they seeing them? How can we educate our staff? Does their staff need more training in here and there? Or what campus is it? So we really kind of look at it as a whole and see, can we hone in on it, or is that just going to be where we are? And sometimes that's the case.
But when COVID hit and they had to go to online, how did y'all handle that?
So the nurses were available as needed for any kind of support. That one was hard. So I kind of kept the program moving we did a lot of education during that time. I found a lot of things on school nursing, on different disease processes. So we kind of honed in on educating ourselves to be better for the future. So that's really kind of what the nurses did during that time. Like I said, we were support for everybody else, but we spent a lot of time educating ourselves.
Well, and I'm sure that was always changing as well.
Constantly.
Yeah, because
And
we
we
didn't
had-
know what we were dealing with. And for me, I had to do my DBU and Hill classes online, but and I really felt sorry for my former colleagues at the high school having to do that. Even more so for the elementary kids. I can't imagine trying to teach elementary school on Zoom or anything like that. But
It was
a
pretty
tough,
interesting.
very difficult time.
My oldest was in 4th grade at the time, and some of their class meetings. But the teachers did a great job. They did the best they could. And that first little part when we went out after spring break, that was so much unknown week to week. So that was a very interesting time.
Can they get COVID tested to the clinics?
We partnered with the Burleson City for COVID testing, and that's all shut down now. But most clinics, and you can do over-the-counter testing now, but we don't do it in the school clinics.
Nor flu tests or anything like
No.
that. Okay. No injections of any kind. What about like
diabetes?
diabetics? Okay, because I am now. I wasn't then, but I've had diabetic students, and they were asked not to carry those pens around. In fact, it's hard to enforce, but I know, the rules were that the kids were not supposed to have even aspirin on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many actually follow the
Follow the
rules.
rules.
Yeah, well, they would say, you're supposed to bring it and put it in a container for the nurse and have it set aside for. And so, if you were like 16 or 17 and you had a headache and you had your own Tylenol bottle, you could do it. Um, is that still possible?
Only with the doctor's orders. Now, I
Okay.
will tell you that our kids, as long as the physician has signed off on it, they're able to carry their supplies.
Hmm.
So they're able to carry their diabetes supplies. If they have an inhaler and a doctor has signed off on it, they can do that.
Hmm.
An EpiPen. My own kiddo has a allergy, so he carries his EpiPen in his backpack, but we have a doctor's order for it.
Hmm.
So they are able to carry those life-saving medications on them so that they can have them as needed.
Well, I had a couple of them that had, the diabetic pen with them and all this business. And I didn't know what exactly the rules were, but I
Mm-hmm.
also knew I started getting type 2 diabetes about 2008 or
Okay.
something like that, 2007, roughly then. And so I got better educated on it. And, I had to talk to some of the kids about it. I talked to some of the school nurses about it.
Mm-hmm.
What should I do or not do? And it's only about a few years, only right to the very end did I start injecting.
Okay.
Can kids inject themselves?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
Our goal, so we do work a lot with kids on ownership of their care.
Mhm.
And so we really want them to be able to administer their own medication. We want them to know, as far as their diabetes stuff, we want them to know how they feel, what they should do, what their
Mhm.
medication is going to do.
Hi there, Sarah Carlson.
Hi,
Hello.
Sarah.
Yeah. She listens a lot too. Gives me advice later. Both of those ladies actually give me advice on, oh, you should have asked them this and that kind of stuff. But anyway, uh, as far as outside use of those clinics, are they open to the public at large?
No, sir.
Oh, well,
They're for students only.
well, good.
Mhm.
Because I say good because I remember we were talking about this before the show many years ago, but in the 90s, one of the governors, Ms. Richards, wanted to open those up to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, a lot of people went nuts.
I bet.
And because they thought, first of all, some of it was a bit misunderstood. They thought, you mean we're going to have strangers walking on our campus
Mhm.
during the day? It was really after hours they were talking about, but they still didn't want strangers on their campus, even
Right.
if their kids weren't there. Because, particularly at the secondary level, there's a lot of, activities at night.
There are.
So that was a big deal. And also they wanted to allow for birth control, condoms primarily. Not the pills certainly, but that was a real big deal.
Mhm.
And also give counseling to young girls that are pregnant, which would include the abortion option.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, people went nuts. And y'all don't really get into that kind of lifestyle choice kind of thing, do you?
We're there to take care of kids.
You're not really in there. You let the health teacher talk about the education part, right? Or the home and family living teacher or whatever. You let them have the heavy duties. You're not there to. But let's say you get a young person who comes in, young girl comes in, and she wants birth control. Do the nurses just tell them you're going to have to find another way, another avenue, or can you counsel them as to the where or what or the possibility of side effects or whatever?
So the nurses can talk to them and have a full blown conversation.
Mhm.
9 times out of the 10, the nurse is going to encourage them to talk to their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then let them work on that decision. And of course, things can come back. I can't do this. I can't do that. Then we would get the counselor involved, and just to make sure that the kid has what they need, and look at the picture as a whole. But the nurses are real good about having those conversations appropriately and just listening to really, is there a reason behind everything?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that would probably be something that we would pull a counselor in and make sure that the child has what they need and that we're not missing anything.
Well, I know as teachers, and maybe the nurses are also in the same rulings, but as a teacher, there are things I could not keep to myself.
Right.
If I had a young person come up to me and say, I have something really important to tell you, I'd say, I want to hear it, but be advised that not everything I have to keep to myself. I may have
Correct.
to, go to an authority of some sort. And if they just told me something, like, well, I like this boy or something like that, or I like this girl, okay, I'll keep that secret. But if they said, they'd come to me and say, well, I got hit by my dad this morning, which happened not often, but enough. I said, then we got to take the next step.
Right.
Or I had not had anybody come out and tell me that they were pregnant, but they kind of alluded to it and said, before you tell me, you better know I can't keep this secret.
Right.
But
Right. And we fall
yeah,
under the same guidelines.
that kind of stuff, But I'm sure your nurses see some heartbreaking stories, particularly at the elementary level.
They do. They do. And, across the board nowadays, but they do a fantastic job.
Well, they really do, and I think we're blessed to have that kind of program. Now, you don't get every report for every little thing, but if there's some major thing going on, let's say you had over at Branson Elementary, you have some sort of major situation, a seizure or something like that. Would you get involved in that?
Yes, especially if 911 has been called. I trust the nurses to take care of the situation, so I'm not getting notified to get involved. I'm notified so that I can make sure that the situation went well and then help the nurse debrief. Those are hard situations, and sometimes they need to talk to another healthcare professional just to kind of run it through at the end of it. So I always just kind of check in, make sure they have everything they need.
Right.
So it's not that they need my help. It's sometimes they just need another ear when it's all over.
Plus, the fact is, I'm sure there's some legal liabilities involved, as everything is. That's what's made it really hard, I'm sure, to be a school nurse, because you may be faced with a situation that you want to help, but you really can't very much. But if the kid comes in and he's got mumps, measles, or whatever, or he has some illness, there are avenues that they can take, or he's be directed to by y'all.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
It's better than nothing. But I think some people think the school nurse is, basically a full-on whole urgent care type clinic, and the law doesn't allow that.
They are to an extent. We just don't medicate with stuff, but we partner. We use a lot of resources. Our community is fantastic. All hands on deck for the school district, and so we know who to reach out to if a kid needs glasses. We know who to reach out to if a kid needs to be seen for hearing. I mean, we have partners everywhere that are willing to work with our kids, and so we just build those relationships and let them help us.
Well, and we're very, say it again, Dummy. We're very fortunate to have a situation where we have this resource. Because most schools have maybe some health clinic, but they're not fully staffed, or they're not staffed by the kind of professionals we do.
Correct.
In our system.
Correct.
They may not have the equipment. Now your equipment is I don't X-ray equipment in there, but I've been in the Burleson one plenty enough times to see that you're well stocked and whatnot, and I'm very, very glad about that as a parent and as a teacher, and it made it possible.
We are very, very lucky. Not all school districts have nurses in all the schools, and doing my job now, I can't fathom that. But it has always been a priority for BISD to have nurses in all the clinics, and it's remained a priority, and it will remain a priority. It is definitely a wonderful thing to have nurses in all the clinics.
Well, if I remember right, I may be forgetting or remembering it inappropriately, but I remember back in the early days of my career here, they had traveling nurses.
Probably.
Now the high school the high school had one permanent, and the junior high had one that was permanent because they were larger. But as far as elementaries, I seem to remember they'd have like half the numbers, and they would just rotate through to various schools. And I just thought, wow, that's a hard way to do business, because kids can't say, well, the nurse is not here, so I'll get the cold tomorrow.
I won't get sick from 1 to 2 today.
Yeah, that's it. It's their lunchtime, and then I'll wait till they're back, and then I'll throw up. And
right. That never happens.
I would think it'd be very difficult with the little kids, though. Because they probably miss their mothers and all this other stuff. And
the first week of elementary school is always a lot of fun. It's a lot of loving on them.
Yeah.
Kind of figuring out the ropes and being that mom.
Another thing I remember is when one kid got chicken pox or some other contagious kind of situation, man, they'd go through that school like wildfire. The only time that ever happened in high school, this is well after you and Eric had left, about 10 years or so, they almost shut the school down because of the flu.
Was that the pig flu, the swine flu?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like early May, and it was prom weekend. And,
oh, man.
Yeah, and everybody was, are we going to have prom or not? So it wouldn't have mattered if, the bubonic plague was sweeping through the school.
We're having prom.
We're having prom, dadgummit. Do you remember your prom?
Oh, yes, I do.
Who was your date?
Tyler Knox.
Is that right? I just saw him.
Did you really?
He's over at DBU. I saw him
Uh-huh.
last week. And
Yep.
yeah, well,
Yep.
now he's big shot and over there and all
Yep.
that, all that. But you've been married to Eric for about 16 years. It's
Yes,
been
sir.
One smooth ride. I know you all were friends in high school.
We were.
so-
We've been friends since junior high.
Yeah. So does that make it easier or harder? I wonder. Because I met my wife at mid-20s.
I think it makes it fun because so much of our life has been part of. We kind of have the same stories, so I think it makes it fun for our kids too. But I don't know. I haven't been married to anybody that I met in my 20s. So.
Well, I met Robin when she was 25 and I was 24. And
Okay.
so, oops, I just gave away. She's older than me,
Ooh.
and everybody knows. But I wonder if that's different. I guess we're off the topic now, anyway. But still, it's interesting though. You've been part of the system as a student now, as an employee and administrator. You've been part of the system, and it's. I've told other people this. One of the values I've had is I have a more global view of what BISD does instead of just that narrow tunnel vision I had about my classroom. What was going on. And I thought everybody down the street must have been insane or drunk or something to come up with this idea. But now you look at it from more of an altitude, you can see, well, okay, that makes more sense now, and I'm sure you've seen that as well.
Absolutely.
Do you miss being on the campus?
I do, but I absolutely love what I do. I do have a tendency that if I go to visit a nurse on a campus, I will start to work their clinic. No offense, I just kind of get in the mode. But I absolutely love my job now. But I love kids, which is why I did this in the first place. So there are times that I could just be in a clinic and work all day, and then I have enough, and I'm ready to get back to what I'm doing.
How much of your days dealt with dealing with the state? Because I know the state has some guidelines, rules, laws, etc.
They have a lot of guidelines, rules, and laws. It just kind of depends on the time of year. When they're coming out with new stuff, then we're trying to create how do we put that into what we're doing here. There's some mandated reports, but that doesn't happen very often. And since COVID has gone away, I don't have to turn in as much to the state as I used to. When COVID was here, I was required to report stuff weekly. So we're kind of on a downward slide of that communication.
Is the state a help or hindrance?
For the most part, they're a help with stuff like that. Some of the guidelines make it hard. But
for the teachers, I know what the answer would be. So I'll just leave it at that. But I always how bureaucracies are and how legalistic everything is. I just wonder how much paperwork you have to do.
And again, it just depends. We have electronic medical records, and so a lot of that stuff can just go online now, and so that helps a lot. And with COVID, we had our processes that made it all fairly easy to report, but that kind of has gone away since COVID left. They don't want to know as much from my perspective, I will say.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a state organization y'all have to report to and all this other business. But
so there are state organizations that support us, but not necessarily any kind of supports. We kind of use it as a to help us write our procedures and make sure we're all on the same page and following our scope of practice in the school setting.
Well, as we come kind of close to the end of the show, let's get back to the parents, because that really is the primary purpose of what you do, is deal with the parents and the kids. What would you tell parents to do to lessen the number of trips their kids are taking to the nurse's office?
It really just depends. If we have a kiddo that's struggling, we're going to partner with a parent to see what really the background of that is, and then we'll work on supporting how do we get them not to see me as often. Other than that, you're going to have your handful of frequent flyers, but those kids typically come for a reason. Other than that, keep your kid home when they're sick.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. Should they? I mean, some parents I know just like, oh, my kid has, the sniffles or whatever, and so they'll keep them home. And the other parents I knew, I don't care if they were, blood was coming out of every orifice. They were going to school.
They're going to school.
Yeah, that kind of thing. That was my dad's attitude. He said, if you were going to get on a trip to Disney World, would you go? Well, yeah. Well, then go to school. That kind of thing.
Do you feel bad enough not to have practice this afternoon?
Yeah.
If you don't go to school, you don't do anything else.
Yeah.
My mom was an educator too. I know those thoughts.
But you would advise if the kid is sick to stay home.
Absolutely.
Because there isn't any point in spreading it around, because those little kids, just germ factories.
And just call the school, let them know that they're homesick, and we'll put it in.
Well, see that I did have a couple of colleagues that they never missed, and their kids were, they would come to school. They'd get a Tylenol or 3 or whatever, and just get their way through the day. And I don't know, man, that's no way to do business. But anything else, um, and this last part, you tell us kind of like a summary of all the things that you can offer the kids and to reassure the parents that their kids are being taken care of.
Taken care of. So in our clinic, we partner with a lot of different entities. So we're allowed to do EpiPens if there's an allergic reaction, Benadryl for an allergic reaction. A kid in respiratory distress, we can assess and give the proper medication if needed. The nurses are trained in CPR, AED, and can train others. Bleeding control, and of course, these are all licensed nurses. They're able to care for the kid as a whole. So we're available to do a lot of stuff, a lot of education. We have a lot of resources that we can go back to, but we can handle emergencies in the clinic. We can handle broken bones. I've had many broken bones, head injuries, things like that. We've had the education behind it to where we can assess and make sure that we have the kid properly taken care of.
How could a parent get a hold of the nurse or you if they have questions like all along the lines I've been asking you?
You can just call the campus, and campus can transfer you to the nurse. You can visit our website on the BISD page. There's health services, and my information is there, and so are all the campus nurses. I'm always available by email. I love to talk on the phone, call me. I'll answer questions, but just call the campus. They can get to the campus nurse.
Right, but if they want to talk to you about policies or whatever else, your email's available, your phone extensions available, everything's there, and you just sit by the phone waiting.
Just wait for your phone
waiting
call.
for the call. Well, I've learned a lot.
Well, good.
And I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast.
I did. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, I thank y'all. Thank Michaela Hill for getting us all together. And, she basically just says, "I'll tell you who you're going to get." And I said, "Hey, I'd like to do this." Well, I'll tell you when we're ready. So I've had several of your peers and colleagues.
Yes.
You operate out of the ad building?
I do.
In that big, spacious ad building.
Yes.
It's I've been in it, and it's like I'm claustrophobic in that building.
It can be a maze sometimes. So every once in a while, I'll be a tour guide and catch the lost person in the hall and get them back to where they're going.
I just wonder how long we're going to be able to maintain that small space as we keep growing. But I guess we are going to be building more schools sooner or later. Because we're just growing that fast. I guess it's nice in one sense that most of the growth is going to be at Joshua ISD. It's their problem.
It does look like the growth is going to hit Joshua ISD.
We're getting growth out where we're at, too. We're going to have a bunch that will be, I don't know where they're going to put some of those kids. I don't know how often you get on Eastern Info, but there's this big development going up. And Stribling and maybe Branson are going to be jam-packed.
Get all those kids.
Yes, so who knows. But anyway, that's great. That's what you do. I'm really proud of you and proud of Eric. I'm glad. I knew y'all'd be this kind of people, though. I've said this to several students and about several students on the show. I knew you'd be successful at what you're doing. I knew then, and I knew you also the kind of character people you ought to be. And it's great to see it come about like this. So I appreciate you coming.
Well, I appreciate it too. It's been fun to see you.
All right. I don't know what the Monday's plan is. We may have a recorded show for Monday. Taylor and I need to straighten that out, get that scheduled. But Tuesday I have Dallas Owen on, and Thursday I'll probably just ranting about Joe Biden's latest outrage. So we'll see you next week.